Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kube Philly. This is February 8th. Today, we're going to be learning all about Helm and using that for a release process. Before we get started, I wanted to go ahead and remind folks that KubeCon EU is scheduled for the 16th and 20th. Tickets are open and available, so if you want to get the virtual session, that's available. Or if you're lucky enough to be able to travel, if you are open to doing that, it is going to be in Valencia, Spain. It's pretty hard to turn down. I'm hoping my CFP gets accepted, so we will see when that happens. As far as other updates from me, I'm still working on trying to get access to making sure I've got proper access to the Cloud Native community groups. I foobarred on this one. We've got the privileges set up. So I think on the next one, we should be able to have that all set up and working. So still working on that workflow. And that's really all from me. Do we have anyone from the community who wants to introduce themselves, talk about a project that they are working on, or looking to hire or looking to hire folks? No? All right, well, that makes it pretty easy. Let me go ahead and stop sharing. I've listened to Rob talk a couple times. I'm interested in this talk because I've been dealing with Helm a lot lately. So this one will be lots of fun. Rob's got lots of talks out on his website there on that URL right there, rich.org/presentations. Go ahead and check those out. And I know this one will be lots of fun. With that, Rob, I'll let you take it away.
Sounds great. Let me get all the things pulled up. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. Today we're going to talk about Helm. Helm is a great templater for Kubernetes YAML files or for any YAML file to that end. Here's the part where I tell you I am definitely going to post the slides on my site tonight. The majority of today's talk is actually code though, but it is online right now. Let's head off to robrich.org. We'll click on presentations, and here is at the helm of Kubernetes. The slides and the code are online right now. Achievement unlocked. Woo! While we're here at robrich.org, let's click on About Me and see some of the things that I've done recently. I'm a Cyril developer advocate, a Microsoft MVP, a Docker captain, and a friend of Redgate. AZ GiveCamp is really fun. AZ GiveCamp brings volunteer developers together with charities to build free software. We start building software Friday after work. Sunday afternoon, we deliver the completed software to charities. Sleep is optional, caffeine provided. If you're in Phoenix, come join us for the next AZ GiveCamp. Or if you'd like a GiveCamp here in Philly or wherever you're connecting from, hit me up on email or Twitter, and let's get a GiveCamp in your neighborhood too. Some of the other things that I've done, a brand new book that just came out, Pro Microservices in .NET 6. That was a lot of fun to put together. And one of the things I'm particularly proud of, I replied to a .NET Rocks podcast episode. They read my comment on the air, and they sent me a mug. Woo! So there's my claim to fame, my coveted .NET Rocks mug. So there aren't very many slides here, but let's dig in real quick. Helm. Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. Helm can template YAML files, build installable packages, and also share and consume packages from others. We'll get to see each of those today. So wait a minute, doesn't Docker already do that? Isn't that why I have Docker Hub content or content in another repository? Well, Docker contains app install complexity, so all the details about how I put that configuration just there and how I compiled my application and how I packaged it up. Docker does that part. But then I end up with a lot of Kubernetes YAML content talking about the way I deploy this into my cloud. So I need a deployment, I need a service, I need an ingress, I need various volumes, persistent volumes, and persistent volume claims. I might need roles, I might need environment variables, config maps, all of that mayhem. That's what Helm is about, is containing all of the cloud resources that we need to provision together with our container. So Helm doesn't replace Docker Hub. Helm is that packaging for YAML resources. So Helm demos, and that's like almost the end of my slides. I love this. Here in GitHub, we have this source. We have a Kubernetes YAML file. Inside the source, we have a website together with a Docker file. And we also have the end state of the chart that we're about to build. I cloned that locally, and I have this website here. So, yep, I've got the website. It has controllers and views. I've also built out the Docker file, and I've already built that Docker file on my local machine. Now we want to deploy it with Kubernetes. So I have this Kubernetes YAML file. Now here in this Kubernetes YAML file, I have a service, I have a deployment. The deployment specifies my image. I have an ingress. Oh, and it didn't notice that I upgraded Minikube since I launched this. And I also have an ingress that has various details. Now we can see that there's kind of a lot of duplication. If I just pick at the helm, the name of my service, we can see it's here and here and here and here and here and here. We've got a lot of duplication here in these YAML files. And that's what Helm will start to help us with. So Helm helps us focus in on the values that we care about so that we don't have to worry about the values that we don't. So let's start out by creating a Helm chart. That's the package. I'm just going to call this chart. We could call this anything, but chart kind of makes sense. Inside here, I'm going to create a second folder. I'll call this templates. And here in the chart folder, I'm going to create a new file and call this values.yaml. Now here in values.yaml are the pieces that I care about. What is unique about this YAML that I want to focus in on? Well, I want the name, so let's go grab name. I want to get the type, the service type. And I want to get the port. So we've got port 80 in a bunch of places. Let's put that here. I want to grab here in the deployment, we've got the number of replicas, the number of instances of our pod. Let's set that in place. We have an image label right here. So, that could be whatever we want this to be. Let's call this image label. We've got a registry here, the ACR URL. So let's call this image registry. Oh, label, image registry. Oh, nope, I'll just call it registry. Looks like my YAML validator is going nuts at the moment, thinking this isn't a valid Kubernetes YAML file. You're right, it's a Helm chart. We also have a bunch of resource limits. This might be different between each application. So let's grab this. And scrolling down a little bit, there's our port 80 again. Here's our image label. We've already got those. We've got some ingress. Now, in some applications, we might have a microservice that isn't exposed publicly. So let's add another one, ingress enabled. And I'm going to say true. We have these ingress annotations that can tell us things about how we work. So let's grab ingress annotations. We also have some details here about our ingress host. So let's grab that. Ingress host. And these are now all of the values that I care about, just these 14. Now that's pretty cool. We have how many lines in this YAML file? 56. And really all the things that we care about are these few. That's a lot simpler to look at than to try and control, all of the different pieces in here. I really like this. We've honed in on the values that we care about. Okay, so next, now that we've got that values.yaml, we can go grab a chart, chart.yaml. Let's set that in place here in our chart. And just to avoid me typing a whole lot, here's the chart.yaml file. And this chart.yaml file has an API version and a name, and also a description that is kind of a nice description inside here. But we have this name. So, okay, let's remove this name. We've already got that elsewhere. Here, also in this chart, we can have a type. There's two different types. There's application and library. If we have a library chart, that is useful functions that we might choose to include in other charts. So in this case, we have an application. We want to deploy this website. So we'll say type of application. Next, we have two versions. We have the version of the chart, and we have the version of the app. So let's say we have a bug in our chart. And so we want to increment the version of our chart, but we don't necessarily want to increment the version of our app. We're still hosting 0.1.0, even if we change the chart to 0.1.1. And it's beautiful there. I've seen some Docker containers where or even NuGet packages, NPM packages, where the version of the package is different than the version of the software because, well, the packaging version is weird. So I like that they've separated them here in Helm. So we have this chart and we have this values.yaml. And these are then the things that help us focus on the pieces that we care about. Okay, so next, let's start to split this YAML into pieces. I'm going to go grab the service, and here inside templates, let's create a new file, service.yaml, and we'll paste that into place. Let's grab this back in our Kubernetes YAML file. We'll grab the deployment details. So let's harvest all of these deployment entries, and we can put that in this file, deployment.yaml. And we can also harvest the ingress details. Now, in this case, I only have these 3 entries, but we could see how we might template other things. Maybe we need to template ingress. Maybe we need to template a persistent volume or a role or config maps or even just a configuration file for your application. Now we have these 3 pieces in separate things, and we can see now a little bit easier rather than that Kubernetes YAML file where they were all kind of mashed together. Now let's start replacing the duplicate pieces in here with our variables. So I'm going to say this one is .chart.name, and I'll use that anywhere I've got at the Helm. So let's just replace all of these. Wow, that's cool. All of these places where we had that duplicated data is now just gone. Replicas, let's put .values.port. That's referencing this port right here. We can do a similar thing where we have .values.image label. We'll go grab replicas. Oh, we did that as port. That's not where port goes. This is replicas. Port is over here. There's port. Here's also the registry. And this is a little bit weird for YAML because it's not quite sure where the pieces are. So we'll put a quote around it just so it knows that that's one big string. Here we'll say this is values image label, and that gets us those details. Let's also put some, oh, we've got image label right there. So that gets us all of the details here. Let's come into the service and do a similar thing. We'll say .chart.name, and we'll use that everywhere where we use this. This is type, so we'll say .values.service type, and here is .values.port. We'll put port here. Wow, the majority of the service was just redundant values that when we focus in on the things that we care about is pretty helpful. That's cool. Now towards ingress, let's go grab this name. Let's do chart.name. These are just Go templates. So if you're familiar with Go, then these will feel right at home. Here's .values.port. We'll use, here we've got .values.ingress host. And that's a good stopping place. Inside this directory, let's say Helm lint, and we'll give it our chart name. In this case, our chart name, the folder name, is chart. Ooh, no linting errors. Excellent. Now, it does want us to add an icon, but I'm going to skip that for now. Now, we've done a whole lot to be able to remove the duplication inside these YAML files, or more to the point, moving it away from us so we can focus in on the things that we want. But we do have some things like here's some annotations. We have the resources here. And well, some apps may not need an ingress. Let's start with that. Let's reach into Go templates and say, if .values.ingress enabled. And then here we will say end. Now this dash right here says space trim. So what I'm saying here is don't put in this extra blank line here. If there's ingress enabled, then do all of these things, but move that line up one. Similar here, don't put in a blank line here. Okay, so we've got this Go template in place to say, don't do it unless ingress enabled is true. Next, let's reach into here where we can say annotations. Now, I'm going to say I want to do .values.resources. Nope. .values.annotations. Ingress annotations. And I don't just want that one line, but rather I want all the entries in there. So I'm going to say indent that 4 lines. And let's pull this out. And so it'll go grab all of the nested details here and indent it that many spaces. Perfect. Now I want to do that here. I also want to do it here in the deployment where we can do these resources. But here it's indented 10 spaces. So it'll go grab all of these limits and set those into place. I did put the quote around this, which just allows it to see it as one string. That's elegant. And let's Helm lint again. Helm lint. Oh, I need to tell it what I'm linting. Chart. Ooh, I've got an error. Ingress line 7. What's at ingress line 7? Oh, to YAML. That's what I did. So let's do to YAML this. And we'll also need to YAML here as well. Whoops. Thank you, linter. Let's lint the chart again. Yep, everything looks great. Now, in this case, we just scaffolded out the deployment, service, and ingress, but we could scaffold out anything. If you have roles or environment variables or anything else, you could scaffold those out, or even just a configuration file. There's nothing Kubernetes specific here about scaffolding out these YAML details. So now let's see if we can get this to run. So I'm going to say Helm template chart. Ooh, there's all of the YAML that we had in all the places. Here's the service, here's the deployment, here's the ingress. Let's redirect that to a file and take a look at it. So I'm going to say, let's route that to dist.yaml. And then let's take a look and see how we did. So here's the original Kubernetes YAML file. Here's the one we just created, and let's compare those. So let's diff them here and see how we're doing. Now, it looks like it added a comment at the top of each one. That's totally fine. And we have the quote around that, so that works. Oh, looks like we used the wrong entry here in the resources, so let's go fix that. It's not ingress annotations, it's resources. Let's re-scaffold out that and come back in here and diff it. That looks good. Any other modifications we can now adjust and see, did we scaffold this out correctly? It looks like in this case we did. That's great. Now, we just scaffolded out to a file, but we could also, in the process of doing a Helm template, we could set some values. So I'm in a Helm template chart, and I'm going to set the image label to v0.1.0 and ingress enabled equals false. Now we see that we get the deployment, we get the service, but we don't get an ingress. Excellent. Oh, I also forgot one spot. Let's create a new template. Let's create a notes.txt. Now here in notes.txt, let's put in some details about things that might help users get started. Thanks for installing this chart name.
Can you take a moment to explain the to YAML annotation? It's a question from the chat.
Ah, good question. The to annotation one, to YAML. In this case, I'm just grabbing a single value, so I'm just grabbing the details here. Actually, in this case, it's this one. But in the case of resources, I don't want just one value. I want all the YAML here. I want including all the nested details. So this to YAML annotation says, go grab all those pieces, turn it into YAML, and or grab it from YAML and turn it into text indented 10 spaces. Great question. Did that explain it a little better, Tara? Awesome. Yeah, if I only wanted a single value, then I would just go like this. But if I wanted all the values, then I'll do it that way. Okay, I'm going to lint it again since I created that notes. Yep, that works. Okay, so let's set some values. Thanks for interrupting me for that question. That was perfect. Helm template chart. I'm going to set image label to v0.1.0 and ingress enabled equals false. And now we could do something like pipe that to kubectl apply -f. Now I'm going to set a little bit different values here. Let's say ingress host is blank and registry is blank. Oh, there's one other thing that we forgot to do in here. Here in the deployment, if my registry is blank, I probably don't want to write this slash. If my registry is set, then I do want to write this slash. So let's come in here and let's say if.values.registry. If the registry is set, then let's do the registry. Otherwise, let's not. So end, yep. So now I will only do this slash if my registry is set. But since I'm doing a local registry here, I won't actually use my cloud-based registry. I will just have that content here. So I'll set my ingress host to blank and my registry to blank, and let's apply that. Oh, kubectl-f-, there we go. So if I'm building from a CI server and I just want to stash that into my Kubernetes cluster, and I just want to be able to futz with a few variables, then that gets me exactly what I'm after. I have my pod. Oh, invalid image name. That's interesting. Docker image list. Did I mess up the at the Helm v0.1.0? I bet I did. Image label. Ah, I didn't set the image label. Let's go back into this command. Oh, I did set that image label. Kubernetes.
You have two typos in your YAML file.
I do. Where are these typos?
Line 18.
Line 18.
Values.
Values in registry is not typed. It's mistyped.
Ah, yes. Thank you. That would definitely lead to a really awful thing there. Okay.
Would the linter have picked that up? I think the linter would have gotten that, wouldn't it?
Let's test it. Let's put it back, spelled incorrectly. Yes, it would have. Good catch.
Linting for the win.
Yes. Okay, so let's apply that and redo the deployment. kubectl get all. Thank you for that. That would have taken me a really long time to find that. Okay, so we've got the service running, the pod running, we've got the service running, we've got an ingress routing the traffic there. And so that's perfect. We got all of our content into our container, into our Kubernetes cluster. So let's imagine a CI system where I just need to package my content up, push that Docker image up to my registry, and then start the content in my cluster. If so, maybe one of the commands in my DevOps pipeline is just this: set some content, pipe that to kubectl apply, and away it goes. In this case, I don't really need to worry about the packaging of Helm. I can just focus in on the template replacement pieces. That might be another way to rewrite a configuration file as well. So just as easily as we created it, we can come in here and delete it. And it will take each of those resources, nuke them from my cluster, kubectl get all, and we can see all of those content are pulled down. Cool. Any questions so far about scaffolding content in Helm or the parameters that we had here in our YAML files?
Could you please tell more about Go templates? I mean, this function like toYAML and something like this nident. Just any magic behind that?
Yeah, Go templates are a little weird. Text template, Go templates. Oh, this is not the docs. This is going to yield us down a rabbit hole. Golang templates. You can also get to this from the Helm docs as well. It's just this syntax for being able to do interesting things. So here's if, range. You also have some built-in functions. You can also build functions, which is pretty cool. So here they're referencing fields. We have the values YAML file, so we're referencing it that way. Creating variables. I'm not doing that here, but you can definitely do that in really interesting ways. Print. All else being equal, I would rather just grab the value straight out of the YAML. But yeah, Go templates can get pretty intense. We're only using a small subsection of the Go templates. That's a good note, though. I'm going to do better at Go templates in this talk. Cool.
Thank you.
One of the questions I often get is, okay, so I grant that YAML is a superset of JSON, but like, what's with that? In particular, here in the containers list, why do I have a dash here but not here? Wouldn't that make more sense? Let's take a look at this deployment and kind of imagine what this might be if this was JSON. So it being a superset of JSON, we have an object and we have API version apps/v1. We have kind deployment. We have metadata, which is an object. Inside that object, there's a name, and it is at the Helm. We have another object here that is spec, and it is an object. Here's replicas, and that's one. We have selector, and that is an object. We have match labels, and then we have app and at the Helm. Outside selectors, we have template, and template is an object. Inside template, we have a metadata. Let's just go grab that metadata because, typing. Here we have labels. Oh, actually, this is very different. So maybe copying and pasting that didn't work. And here we have app and at the Helm and version, image, label. Outside the metadata, we have spec. And inside the spec, we have containers. And in all of the other places, this has been an object. But in this case, it's not going to be an object. In this case, it is an array. Now, the first element in our array is the definition of this container. So let's create an object for that. And in our container definition, we have name at the Helm, and we have image, ACR URL at the Helm, image label, that's a string, and then we have ports. This is an array, so then we'll have here container port 80, and then we have resources, and that's an object that has properties in it. So here's this object that is that container definition. This object is represented by this entry in the array that this container section builds. In a similar way, here's an entry in this array. So if we had multiple ports, we could put them like this. Now, in this case, we only have the one, but we have similar experiences in the service where we have multiple ports here in one object. So it is a superset of YAML, but it isn't because, well, the syntax is very different. But as we start to think about it like this, it's like, okay, so this is a number. Now, here we don't have quotes around the strings. So if we wanted to, for example, say this was version 1.0, then JSON, it would be 1.0. Well, that's a number, not a string. We really want it to be this string like this. So we need to help YAML by putting that in quotes. Similar, another trick is just to put a V in front of it. So now it's definitely a string. But that's why we did this adjustment of putting this in a string so that it was really carefully all a string of all the things. But we can see that that's kind of how we get from JSON to YAML. I grant that YAML is weird, but YAML isn't quite as awful as we thought. YAML's pretty cool. You know, we eliminate a lot of this curly brace mayhem and a lot of this.
Are you hacking? What are you doing? Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you? Oh, you're hacking. What are you hacking? Is it illegal?
I just took this Kubernetes YAML file and turned it into JSON.
Oh, that's cool. So this isn't illegal, right? Like, I don't want to get in trouble.
No, not at all. I just converted this file from one format to another.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure I wasn't gonna have to call the cops on you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh,
no need to call the cops here. Let's fill out the limits here. We have CPU is 500 M, which is half a CPU. Memory is 128 megs, and there's our JSON file. Cool. So YAML is kind of weird, but we can see how it's a really powerful format. And so I can see why YAML has kind of taken over. So we were able to grab our content and push it up to our container registry, or rather apply it to our Kubernetes host that way. Let's work next to be able to package this into a Helm chart, a tarball, if you will. Helm package chart. Now this
emergency.
Uh-oh. Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm calling the cops because I feel like this is illegal.
Oh, great.
Are you guys silencing him?
Thanks, James. So we just created this Helm package chart, and now we've created this .tar.gz file. Let's pop that open. I'm going to untar this, or ungzip it. Now we've got that. And now let's untar it. And what we can see is the contents of this tarball. Let's just compare this with the chart that we just built. Compare. And we can see that it is identical. We've got our values.yaml, all of our template files. Now, it did alphabetize the details in our chart.yaml and remove the comments. That's fine. But everything else, it just kind of packaged that bundle up into this tarball. That's pretty cool. Let's delete this tarball and see if we can customize it a little bit. So, Helm package chart. Let's use our trick where we said set. We can say app version is 0.1.0 and version, our chart version is 0.1.0 and destination, the dist folder. So it packaged that thing up into a tar.gz and set these two things. That's cool. Let's take it out for a spin and see if we can also set some other properties. So before we said --set image label is v0.1.0 and registry is blank and ingress host is blank, and that's not a thing. Helm package chart, there is no set command. So let's reach out to a Helm plugin. Here's a Helm plugin called pack, which actually has the identical syntax to package, but the one thing it supports is --set. Hey, Helm, can you add these properties to that? So now that we have this plugin installed, let's come back and instead of saying package, let's say pack. And that allows us to be able to, at runtime, set some of these details in the same way that we set them as we pipe those files into kubectl apply. But now we have this .tar.gz with the content set. So let's untar it. And then let's ungzip it and then untar it. And now if we compare this file, this folder rather, to this chart folder, the original one that we started with, then we can see that we've now got, we modified the values YAML on our way through. So we set ingress enabled to true, and ingress host to blank, and our registry to blank, and it alphabetized them, which is kind of cool. So we've got all of that content in place where we were able to set it as we package the file. Now that we've got that in place, we might choose to push this up to our Helm registry. A lot of Docker registries now support Helm charts, so we might even be able to push it up there. And then we could pull it back down, and if we're getting ready to install it, we could now Helm install, and I'll give it my name, my app name, my app, and I'll point it at that at the Helm at that Helm chart, the package chart, and I can still use set ingress enabled equals false, and in this case I'm going to say replicas equals 2, and now I can go grab that chart, and whatever it needs to install, is it apps, deployments and services and roles and other configuration, it will all just do it, and I can focus in on the things that I want to configure. Now we have that notes.txt, and that's deployed here. That's shown here. We see some information about what we've got installed, and then we see the contents of that notes file. So cool, I left myself some instructions. Let's say Helm status, my app, and we can see that that is basically this, which is pretty cool. Helm get all, my app. We can see all of the resources associated with this. Here's the YAML that was applied as part of that content. We can also say Kube CTL get all. I chose to deploy that here. And so here's that at the Helm, the pods, the service, the deployment. And if we look for ingress, we said, no, I really don't want an ingress. So we don't have an ingress deployed here. Perfect. We were able to focus in on the values that we really cared about. And as we deployed it, we could adjust that for each environment. Let's maybe put in the prod connection strings or disable the pieces that we don't need. Now, in this case, we chose to turn off ingress and set the replicas. And as we packaged it, we changed the registry and the ingress host. Now, maybe we might want to go into our values.yaml and set those defaults to avoid having to pass them every time. But we can definitely configure it as we're creating the chart. So maybe our CI system is going to set the current versions of all the things. And then maybe our deployment is going to adjust it for each particular environment. Helm list. We can see that we've got this app installed, and it is currently revision 1. We haven't changed it yet. It's deployed, it's running, and that's great. So now let's go to, let's decide that we want to upgrade this app. Now we could go through the process of adjusting our application, maybe changing the details in there, but now let's just upgrade it. So I'm going to say Helm upgrade my app, and I'll point it at the tarball that I want to change. Now in this case, we didn't change the tarball, but we can imagine a world where we did. Now let's do Helm list, and we can see that we're at version 2. If I hurry, I can see it terminating or recreating content. It looks like in this case, it was already done by the time I arrived. That's excellent.
Fast.
So I've got my app installed, and now, well, what if I want to install a second copy of my app? Well, if I was to say Helm install and do all the things, then it would create a service named service at the Helm and deployment at the Helm, and I would get these name collisions. Well, I could move that to another namespace inside of Kubernetes, but let's see if we can modify our chart to create instance-specific entries here. Now, we see in notes.txt where we have chart.name and chart.version and release.name. And so, well, let's use release.name. When we said Helm status, that release name, that was the name that we were using here, this my-app. So let's use release.name in our templates. I'm going to start off with the service. So the name of the service now will include chart.name-release.name. It will have a selector of not only app, but also release. So let's go grab release name there. Let's also go into the deployment, and we will give it the name of chart.name-release.name. We'll give it the release selectors there as well. We can give it more metadata here in our pod template. The container name probably doesn't need to change. The ports don't need to change. We don't need to change any resource limits or anything else here. Let's flip over to our ingress, and our ingress needs to change the name so it doesn't collide. And we probably want to route not just to chart name, but chart name-release name, that service that includes our release as well. So now that we've got that in place, let's say Helm lint, the other lint. Oh, I need to give it the folder, chart. Everything looks good there. So now let's say Helm pack chart. I'm going to give it an app version of 0.1.0 because my app didn't change, but I'm going to give it a chart version of 0.1.1. I did change my chart. I'll give it a destination of the dist folder, and let me set some parameters. So I'm going to say image label is v0.1.0 and 0.1.0, and registry is blank, and ingress host is blank. And now let's go build this chart. Okay, so we have a new chart, this tarball here. Now let's go install that. Helm install. I'll install my-app2 to dist/@the-helm. Let me make sure that I go grab the .1 version of it. I'll set ingress enabled equals false and replicas equals 1. Okay, now that I've installed my second app, I can say Helm list. And I see my original app here. Its version is 2. It's using this at the Helm 0.1.0, and the app version is 0.1.0. Here's my at the Helm 2, which is using 0.1.1, and my app is 0.1.0. Excellent. kubectl get all. And we can see that we have the original one at the Helm and the new one that includes that suffix of the app name. Here's my original one and my new one with the suffix, and my original one and the new one with the suffix. So now I don't get that name collision. Excellent. Now I probably want to uninstall my original one and reinstall it with the new version so that I don't have any collisions and they're consistent. But we can see how we can use the release name to make charts that will be able to install simultaneously inside the same namespace. So let's Helm uninstall my app, and we'll Helm uninstall my app2, and we'll Helm list. Now I've got no content installed, and let's say kubectl get all And if I hurry, nope, they're already gone. Was there deployments involved? Was there extra roles? Was there secrets? Was there other configuration details? When I did the Helm uninstall, it removed all of those. All of the particulars about this service are just wiped out of the system. That's great. So we saw how we could template a YAML file. We saw how we could package that into a tarball, how we could use that tarball to install things. Now, what if we want to share that tarball, or to that end, use services from others? We have Docker Hub, where we can pull down containers for others. And here's Artifact Hub, where we can look at others' charts. So I'm going to look in here, and I'm going to search for Nginx. And let's take a spin on an Nginx service. Now, in this case, I don't need to know a whole lot about Nginx. I could definitely dig into all the particulars about doing it. But when I got to Docker Hub, it was like, and configure this and configure that. And I'm like, I don't want to worry about that. So now let's go grab this. Now, if you notice something interesting, I am adding a repository. Artifact Hub is not a Helm chart registry, but rather a registry of registries. So I'm going to go grab this, and let's install that Helm chart registry. And next, let's go grab this particular chart from that registry. Now I'm going to do a Helm install in the same way I did before. I'll give it a name, and I'll reference that chart name. Now in this case, the chart name is not a file on my disk. Rather, it's a file inside that registry. I know nothing about Kubernetes, or nothing about how to configure Nginx and all the default details that I need to, but kubectl get all, and I now have Nginx running on my machine. So if I hit this node port, this load balanced IP. So let's go there. There's Nginx running. I didn't need to worry about what containers and how to configure it. The Helm chart took care of all of that, and I could choose which parameters I wanted to just inside that Helm chart. But right away, I had that service running. And just as easily as I did that, Helm list, Helm uninstall, my release. Did I typo that name? I bet I did.
The Helm command.
Oh, Helm. My fingers and my keyboard. No, I'm just kidding. Helm list. Just as easily as I installed it, I uninstalled it. And now that service is no longer available, this will just spin until it times out. So that was really cool. We got to pull down a chart from others just by grabbing that reference from Artifact Hub and installing that template. So that was really cool. Any questions on the demos?
Not a question, but I wanted to say thank you for handling the troll, both James and you, Rob. It was handled very quickly and without skipping a beat. So very impressive.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I think you might go into it because I clicked ahead in your presentation, but can you talk a little bit? Have you had any experience with handling custom resource definitions in Helm?
Ooh, yeah. The hard part with custom resource definitions is that Helm presumes that it can just blast them into place. And so if you have different versions of the chart that have slightly different custom resource definitions, then they can end up clobbering each other. Outside that, it's pretty natural. You know, it's just another YAML file that you apply into place.
Yeah, that's the problem I was talking about before we started that I've been learning this week.
Yeah. The really unfortunate part about CRDs is that they are global to the entire cluster. And so whoever's got the definition is the definition we must have for all the things. So versioning of CRDs becomes really important. Ideally, it's only additive. so that if you just have the latest CRD version, then hopefully it'll work. But yeah, sometimes I'll package the CRDs separately to say, make sure these are in your cluster, and then go grab my application that just leverages them.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading. Lots of learning with Helm this week.
I have a question.
So the cool part is Helm can scaffold out anything. In this case, we chose to scaffold Kubernetes YAML files, but we could scaffold any YAML configuration files or any other YAML-based things. You could scaffold a Docker Compose file. It removes that duplication, and because it kind of has that Kubernetes YAML type of experience, then it's kind of a superset of the standard Kubernetes CRDs. So by that, I mean that the chart has an API version and kind. It's not quite kind, but it's pretty close. And so you kind of have that natural Kubernetes-like experience to it. Some of the limitations of Helm. Helm is only an install tool. It can't monitor, scale, heal your services. It's just about getting that content into place. It does handle the upgrades, but you can scaffold out your Kubernetes resources to be able to auto-scale or auto-heal or include the additional monitoring tools, add the health check URLs. If you want to reach out into those additional life cycles, that's when you may want to upgrade from Helm to something like operators. Now, they have kind of 5 phases of operators where you can start with installation, work on upgrades. Helm kind of does those 2. If you create an operator with Ansible, you can also get into lifecycle hooks where you can keep track of things and make sure that you have enough of them. But if you really want to take advantage of operators, that's when you use the Go SDK, where you can look at insights and eventually autopilot, where your resources can self-heal and self-scale, and that can be really fun. So Helm nicely does the installation and upgrades, and you can create operators based on Helm. But if you want to get that full life cycle, then that's where operators are really excellent. As you grab the slides from robrich.org, click through the blue link, and you'll learn more about operators. We did see how, though, Helm is really great for removing that duplication. For example, all of the places where you had at the helm or image version, we can also use it to template those values into place in a really elegant way. We saw kind of the 3 levels of Helm. You can template content, and if you only have the results of your build that you just want to kubectl apply, then Helm template some path to YAML chart, set some values on the way through, kubectl apply, and if that's all you use of Helm, then that's perfect. It exactly matched your goal. But if you wanted to, you can package them out into the tarballs and then install those tarballs, configuring the things as you set them. So maybe you set your application version on the way through, and then you also set your environment variables on the way into installing it into the system. And it will just go grab all of the different resources that you need. We also saw how if you wanted to level up again, you can use artifacts from others, from Artifact Hub, or publish your own content to Artifact Hub. The interesting thing about Artifact Hub, unlike Docker Hub or another container registry, this is not a chart registry, but rather a chart registry. So we started out by adding the repo, and then we installed the content from that particular repo. And so that is Helm. Helm's a really great way to be able to scaffold YAML files, to be able to package them up in interesting ways, but also to be able to consume software from others, including both the Docker containers and also all of the YAML resources that you need to be able to deploy this to your cloud. If you're watching this video later, hit me up on Twitter at @Rob_Rich, and I'd love to dig in farther. You can grab both the slides and the code online right now from robrich.org. But for those of us who are here live in the event, what are your thoughts? What are your questions? What should we dig into further?
I have a little off-topic question. What did you use for your slide presentation? Because that is very smooth.
Yes, this is Reveal.js, and I love it because you get this navigation piece. You don't have to figure out how to download a PowerPoint viewer. If you're on your phone, you don't have to pinch and zoom around a PDF. Reveal.js is awesome. And the cool part about Reveal is that you can build your slides in Markdown or HTML and then just get it going. I think it's really cool because a lot of the way they teach you how to use it is with this demo deck, which, by the way, is a Reveal presentation. I just think that's really elegant.
I support dog fooding of all solutions. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I was like so curious to what it was.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Rob. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? I like how you started from nothing, from just a YAML file all the way into walking through what you need to do and how you need to set it all up. So that was helpful.
Awesome. A lot of us start by saying, Helm, go scaffold me out a chart. And that chart is just far too complex. I'm like, no, just build some YAML files. It's so much simpler this way.
That's exactly what bit me in the past.
Yeah, it bit me too, where I just scaffolded out the thing. I'm like, this is not easier, and threw it away. I've heard from others too, where they're like, I just did Helm initialize a chart, and then I was done.
Yeah, the helpers functions is nice, but other than that, yeah, it's too much, and you just end up deleting it anyway. So I just start from scratch.
Yeah, and the cool thing about starting from scratch, and I'm glad you really appreciate this approach, is that these are the values that we care about, and they are exactly the values that we care about, nothing more and nothing less.
Well, Rob, thanks for presenting with us. Next month, March 10th, we've got a real doozy of a presentation. We have the SIG release tech lead joining us, talking about how they have started signing images and artifacts for the Kubernetes releases. So he is now a coworker, and I've talked him into doing a presentation for us. So that will be super exciting. Odolfo from ChainGuard will be here. So that will be something I don't think anybody should miss, because you know, signing images
That sounds
and
like
artifacts
fun.
is, yeah, it's becoming more and more important. I don't know if Andrew's gonna join. We've actually been talking about, he's helping us right now, turning all of the SIG store components into Helm charts. So that's part of what we've been working on. Oh, Rob, you're more than welcome to join us too next month if you want. Thanks again.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Hey, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Yep.
Good night.
See
Thank
ya.
you.